can bring the speed at which software companies move to the hardware world, we, in my opinion, will see a hardware renaissance, which is something that I really am interested in, like seeing in the world. So this is what Diode is trying to do, and there's a lot of things that we do like to make this happen. Like we use large language models to design the board, removing like a strong bottleneck. We use newer manufacturing techniques that take care of the data. I'm happy to talk into details, but at the very core level, we design and manufacture circuit boards for our customers.
I love that, and hopefully we'll go through all those three levels and more besides. Just to put even a finer point on that sort of third layer, if Diode sort of succeeds to your wildest ambitions to the fullest extent, how does the world look different in your view? What do you hope is different?
The best way that I have been describing like what our success path looks like is when Amazon started making AWS available to a ton of companies. We effectively got rid of the tragedy of the commons of everybody having to spin up their own server, and building became incredibly more democratized. This has not happened in the hardware world for many reasons, and I think that we need AWS for electronics, like manufacturing layer that every single hardware company can use, feeling ownership. Like on AWS, you don't own the server, but you do own all the infrastructure. There is somebody responsible for doing that. We want to be that for the printed circuit board industry in the United States.
You mentioned that you had the experience to live in Southeast Asia and also, other parts of the world. The Davide Aznaghi clearly is an Italian name, and I know that from studying you. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a fairly small town between Lake Como and Milan in the northern part of Italy.
What's the small town, out of curiosity?
It's called Meda.
Okay, my grandmother lives in
About,
Fino Mornasco, so not too
oh, no
far.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually very close.
Yeah.
That's wild. But it was a like wonderful place to grow up. A lot of beauty, a lot of aesthetics. Surprisingly, a lot of like small manufacturing, but not a ton of science. Like I think that the moonshot projects I've always associated to the U.S. And I came here for high school. In fact, in Minnesota.
How did that happen?
My grandfather was traveled the world. Like he lived in Peru, like building infrastructure projects when he was younger, and he basically told me, look, like sounds like you're interested in scientific progress. If I were you, I would basically pack it up and leave for the US. And so during high school, the like Italian high school give you like a small scholarship opportunity that you can take and do 1 year abroad. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna try and do everything that I can to actually go to the US. I didn't specifically pick Minnesota, but I'm actually kind of glad I did. It's been a wonderful way of seeing like a parts of the U.S. that I would probably otherwise not have seen. I've spent the rest of my time in the U.S. in either San Francisco or New York, which are very peculiar cities.
Yes, it sounds like maybe you were the sort of kid that was, building electronics of their own or taking them apart as at a young age. Is that sort of how you got started and interested in this world?
So the other thing that Italy gave to the world, which I'm very, very proud of, is Arduino. A large part of my formative year was spent messing around with like small Arduino boards. There's a The concept of an electronic fair is still alive and well in Italy. Like you can still go to Erba, which is actually very close to Fino Mornasco, and like buy components. There's going to be like resellers because the northern Italian small manufacturing industry is still alive and kicking. You have all these like small electronic manufacturers, and so I bought my first Arduino there, and it was like an incredible like thrill to be able to build things that didn't exist before. And this was apparent. I was kind of the only person that I knew that was interested in this kind of stuff. But my friends were definitely interested in the things I could build with it, which was even more exciting for me.
I'm always interested in, how often it feels like hyper ambitious people, founders, often have an experience early on where they go to another culture, and maybe that opens their horizons in some way. Maybe it scales their ambition in some sense. For you, going to Minnesota, like functionally, what did that sort of, how did that change you?
So I've always been very interested in the like academic pursuit, like more like researchy type roles. And like a lot of the things that I did in Southeast Asia were like robotics research and like papers. But when I came to the US, I was in this relatively small town. It's called Winona, Minnesota. And I kid you not, there's like two Fortune 500 companies that came out of this like really small town. Like one of them is Fastenal, and then like 3M is like very close, in like half an hour. And everyone everyone was either like working at these companies or like a small company. Like all my friends had this like wonderful drive to do things, and it was very different than back home. It was right after the financial crisis, and so like jobs were scarce in Italy. It just like painted a picture, like like statistically, like catch and release. Like you random sample a place in the United States, and this like relatively small town that I had never heard of before has incredible entrepreneurship and like people that like give back to the community. They donated to the local high school that I was a part of. Like that was very eye opening. It was like, oh, like you can actually do this, and it has a meaningful impact. And if this happens in Winona, Minnesota, I wonder what goes on in San Francisco. You know?
On that subject, I didn't grow up in Italy, but Italian heritage certainly. Why do you think there aren't as many great Italian founders, even compared to other European countries that, it feels like Italy maybe is batting under what you would expect from it as an economy.
I think that this is a fairly complicated, multifaceted answer. If I had to give like a single like point, it's probably that the financial markets and the way that the pension funds work is set up very different in Anglo-Saxon countries like the UK and the US and Switzerland, which is not Anglo-Saxon, but like conceptually, it's like very
Yes.
fiscally like liberal than in Italy. Like Italy is a very has a very specific capital market. So there is like some very logistical reason why I think that this does not happen. There are some like cultural reason that like we can get into, but fundamentally, you live a beautiful life in Italy, and the friction that it takes for you to actually be like, I need to effectively decrease my quality of life by 10x to then maybe have it like better, maybe like a 1% chance of actually like hitting it big. The incentive are not like super aligned. And I like, maybe this is a weird opinion to have. I think that this is perfectly fine. Like I know people that are truly happy. It's just not for me, but the like I believe that it is a beautiful world because there are places such as Italy where you don't have to keep running for you to feel successful. There is a space for this in the world. But I also know very strong founders in Italy. Like Bending Spoons come to mind. That there's a lot of people that I truly respect. And of course, like if you look at Bending Spoons, there's a really interesting part about the financial markets. The way that they structure the acquisition business does go through Switzerland, the US, and like getting potentially public. So there's a lot to unpack there. But I think it's a I love Italy. I still like go back. My family lives there. But to do what I like want to do, I think that the United States right now is a wonderful place.
Well, I agree with both those sentiments. I'm going back to Italy next week, so I always like an excuse to do that. You eventually come back to America for more sort of studying for university, and then have sort of these stints in Asia. I'm curious, yeah, when you think about, you've lived, I think, Italy, Berkeley, Shenzhen, and maybe Hong Kong also.
That's right. I was mostly in Hong Kong and then like commuting to Shenzhen.
Okay, got you. And now New York. Uh, which of those cities do you feel like changed you?
I think Hong Kong is probably
The estimated strength 500,
the
ATM1,
largest
line
amount
up
of
on the
learning
left
rate
side. Pit
I
road is closed.
have done.
A lot of opportunities
Like a
today, head down. Pick your battles.
compressed period of time before starting this company. In many ways, starting this company has felt like what it was feeling in Hong Kong. I think the reason is that up until then, I was like one of the most knowledgeable people about electronics around me. Back home in Milan, like I would effectively hold all my like small embedded projects. But going to Hong Kong is an incredibly humbling experience. I think culturally, China and Hong Kong both have a very strong preference for the hard sciences. So there's actually fewer people that go in pure computer science. Your parents are more proud of you if you are a physicist or an electrical engineer than just like a pure software major. And this is changing in many like ways. But so many of my friends were just 4 standard deviation above average like knowledge in electronics. People that had been building electronics for like years, and they were immersed in this culture. And I think that left a profound impression that this not only can be done, but also there are people that are immensely more knowledgeable than I could ever
car
like,
is
hope
off.
to be at that point in my life.
Jets up, they're going
And
green,
they are
green.
incredibly graceful at teaching this kind of stuff. There's this person specifically, Alex Wong. Him and I like worked on a couple of papers on like robotic hand for prosthetic devices, and like he was 19 at the time, and to this day he's probably like at that point in time of his life one of the best electronic engineers I've ever met, and I've met a lot. So it was just like a really interesting time to